December 11th, 1978. The cold winter air bit through the streets of Des Plaines, Illinois. Inside Nisson Pharmacy, everything about the evening felt ordinary. Shelves were stocked, cash registers chimed, and a young Robert Piest was just finishing up his shift. But that night was anything but ordinary. It was the night Robert Piest disappeared, and the night serial killer John Wayne Gacy crossed paths with his final victim.
This is my diary. I am reading you the excerpt from December 12th, 1978. So it says, "Today was an absolute miserable day. Rob never came home last night. He never got back to the store, and he never went home. When I was about 15, I started working at Nisson Pharmacy. I was a clerk. I was the person at the front and ran the cash register. I met Rob Piest when he came to work at the pharmacy. He was the new stock boy. He did sports. He was a gymnast. And he had outdoor interests in hiking, and he was a photographer. He was actually working there to save money for a camera and a car. And he was very close to his family, especially to his mother. He loved her.
Robert was a student at Maine West High School in Des Plaines, Illinois, balancing his studies with a part-time job at the pharmacy. That evening, Rob worked alongside his friend Kim Byers. She'd arrived late for her shift, rushing through the cold, and borrowed Rob's blue jacket to prevent cold. And then he walked in, a man who looked unusual to some but discomfit to others. John Wayne Gacy, a local contractor, overweight, with thinning brown hair streaked with silver. That night, he wasn't just there to take measurements for a remodeling job. He was hunting. Kim saw him walking through the rows, but didn't think much of it. To her, he was just a contractor hired to renovate the store. But Gacy wasn't there for renovations. He was there to find his next victim into the darkness. By the end of his shift, Rob was ready to head home. Before leaving, he mentioned to Kim and others that he had plans to meet with a contractor about a potential summer job. He put his jacket back on, pulled it tight against the cold, and headed outside to take out the trash. But Rob never came back. Hours later, his parents reported him missing. They knew their son wouldn't run away. Something wasn't right, and their worst fears were about to come true. Unfamiliar to anyone, earlier that night, Kim had stuffed a receipt into Rob's jacket pocket. A simple film receipt for developing photos. It seemed insignificant at the time, but it would become the key to unraveling one of the most horrifying cases in American history. When police began questioning suspects, John Wayne Gacy's name quickly came up. Rob had mentioned meeting a contractor, and Gacy had been at the pharmacy that very night. But Gacy denied ever meeting Rob. Investigators weren't convinced. They searched Gacy's home, and that's when they found it. The receipt. It was proof that Rob had been in Gacy's house, and with that, the walls around Gacy's carefully constructed facade began to crumble.
We needed during those days was evidence. We needed to hook the evidence onto Gacy so it wouldn't fall off.
I got home from school, grabbed a quick bite, and was getting ready to go shopping. Then the phone rang. They started asking me questions about the film slip. That night, the night Rob disappeared, I was dropping off some film at the pharmacy to be developed. I filled out the envelope, placed it in the pickup bin, and I tore off the receipt. And then I put the receipt in the little trash box that was near the side of the cash register. And then I just kind of stopped. And then I stared at that receipt, and it stared back at me for unknown reasons. I grabbed the receipt and I stuck it in Rob's jacket pocket. I tossed the receipt into the small trash bin beside the cash register. But then I hesitated. I don't know why, but I just stood there staring at that receipt, and it almost felt like it was staring back at me. Without thinking, I picked it up and slipped it into Rob's jacket pocket.
A receipt into her pocket, which turns out to be Rob's coat. Thank God Kim Byers had put that little receipt into her pocket, which turns out to be Rob's coat.
That receipt wound up in the trash at John Wayne Gacy's house. And that was our first connection, putting Robert in that house.
We had it sent out to the crime lab to see if they could match it up to the envelope of developed film. And in fact, there was a match. Exactly how it was torn off and the different little pieces and angles that was still in there, how it perfectly matched. We were, of course, very happy because that looks really good in court.
Police dug deeper into Gacy's life and uncovered a horror beyond belief. Under the floor of his home, they found 29 bodies buried in his crawl space. Gacy's charm and reputation as a friendly contractor masked the reality. He was one of the most prolific serial killers in American history, responsible for the murders of 33 young men and boys. Robert Piest was John Wayne Gacy's final victim. He was just 15 years old, with his whole life ahead of him. His disappearance sparked the investigation that brought Gacy to justice, but at an unimaginable cost. Rob was more than a victim. He was a son, a brother, and a friend. His story reminds us of the lives lost to Gacy's monstrous crimes, lives that deserved so much more. In 1980, John Wayne Gacy was convicted of 33 murders and sentenced to death. He spent 14 years on death row before being executed in 1994. But justice, while served, can never erase the pain he caused. Robert Piest's legacy lives on as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, community, and the pursuit of truth, no matter how dark it may seem.